and in return, these farms are giving us income. So the farms are the ones that demand the labor services. So when we talk about demand in general, we define the demand. Always there's a specific market wage and at a specific time. So there is that willingness and ability to purchase. Always remember those four terms. You can use your language as much as you can. You can group words anyway, but as long as you catch the four terms, somebody will be able to understand that you're talking about demand. Then we talked about the determinants of demand. We talked about things such as changes in wage, changes in demand for the product, the level of technology, and the price of substitutes such as capital. And also we said demand for labor is derived demand, whereby output for the farm, the demand for the farm's output increases, that induces the farm to produce more. But for the farm to produce more, it has to employ more labor. So when output increases, demand for labor is going to increase. This is because the farm needs to produce more to take advantage of the prevailing market profits. So that is where we have the case of derived demand. Hope you can recall about the movement along the labor demand curve that is caused by the change in wages. And then we can talk about the shift. So I'm talking about something like this. Hope you can see my screen from your end. So we expect that the labor demand curve to be downward sloping. And in this side, we are going to have wage rates. And here we are going to have number of labor. We have the origin. Remember, this is economics. We have to have the origin. So assuming that our wage was at this point, if the wage declines to this point, we are assuming that the wage has gone down. So we expect that there is a movement along. Just assuming this is point A, and assuming this is point B, there is a movement along this demand, the labor demand curve. So that's one. And when you talk about, there's something that somebody was asking me the other day about the story of the shift of in the demand curve. So assuming this is the case that happens, so I want to talk about maybe there was an increase in demand of products. So assuming that, so initially we had our demand curve at that point. So remember that in the y-axis we will be having wages, and in the x-axis we will be having number of laborers, number of labor. So the wage will remain the same. If the wage remains the same and there is an increase in labor demand, the demand curve will, because it's now not going to move, the wage rate remains the same. So instead of the wage coming, maybe making the people to be employed more, the wage coming down, the wage will remain the same at that point. But this demand curve will have to shift outwards so that it can absorb more people. So we are talking about the number of people. You can check with the x-axis. So the number of people will increase. The number of people employed will increase. That is why there is a shift. The shift is brought about that the wage rate remains the same. Therefore, instead of the movement along, that's why we say the shift is brought about by other determinants of labor other than the wage, because the wage is going to remain the same, but there will be a move that will be forced for this demand. So assuming that this is our demand 1 and this is our demand 2. So this is caused by the increase. This is brought about by the increase in demand for the farm's product. So that is another case that we should consider. Also, somebody was talking about the price of substitutes. We have substitutes such as capital. So assuming that our labor demand curve is given that way, we have wages, we have number of labor, then we have the origin. So what makes this is our demand? Let us call it D1. So the wage remains the same. So now we are assuming that capital is more expensive as compared to labor, and the firms have used the substitute effect. Now they want to employ more labor so that they can take advantage of labor being cheap. So because of that wage rate, the wage rate remains the same. It will just extend that way. Then they are going to employ more labor in that way. So that you can check with the x-axis. So there is an increase in the number of labor employed. That is just a reminder. Then we talked about the supply curve. And always remember the supply curve is backward pending. Hope from the notes you have seen the effect where we talk about the backward pending. So this is number of hours somebody works. So the supply curve is always backward pending. This is brought about, this side here, we are talking about it being brought about by what we refer to as the substitution effect. The substitution effect. And this side here brought about by what we refer to as the income effect. It is brought about by the income effect. It is brought about by the income effect, and this side is brought about by the substitution effect. So in case somebody is going to ask you why the labor supply is backward pending, you have to talk about the substitution effect and income effect. So those two are so key for you to define why the supply curve is backward pending. So we defined what is supply, then we talked about the determinants of supply, then we talked about the effectiveness of labor supply. Hope you remember that. During your free time, take time over that. So today, I'm talking about the theories of wage determination. I shared with you the notes the other week. Hope some of you went through the notes. But if you did not go through the notes, you are not in the wrong class, you are in the right place. So we are talking about theories. We are talking about theories. Here we are talking about theories of wage determination. And we have number one, we need to ask ourselves. And I want you to use the public chat to tell me the difference between wages and salary. Wages the difference between wages and salary. That's where I start my class today. The difference between wages and salary. Kila mtu a type. You are 11 of you, and I expect kila mtu ajaribu kutype. Try to talk about what is wage, what is salary is. Kila siku tunaamka asubuhi tunasema wages, tunasema salaries. I've not gotten everybody typing. Some people are Googling. I can see somebody Googling. Stop Googling. Just give the answer the way it comes to your head. And I'm just seeing at least 5 people have taken part. Some people are not even participating. I don't want to call names today because I'm tired of calling your names. So please take part, take our participation, because we are talking about a very interesting thing. Some of you are our salaried friends. Some of you are our wage friends. So what is the difference between wages and salary? Please, I don't want to call names today. I'm not in a position to call names today. So I'm trying to assume I'm seeing some people typing. Let me wait for what they are saying then. Christine, I'm waiting for what you are typing so that I can speak. Use even shorthand. I can read shorthand. Thank you. So when you talk about wages here, it is an important aspect. Wages are not paid on weekly basis or daily basis. They are not. Wages can be paid up to 10 years. So we talk about wages being something like a contract. This is more of a contract. They are more of contracts. In case you don't show up for the contract, your wages can be varied. They can be reduced or increased according to the way you perform. So they are not only fixed to weeks or days. They can up to be 10 years, wages are more of contracts. And salaries, in our case, when we talk about things like salaries here, we are talking about they are short term. They are short term. You're talking about things that are short term. So they are not short term. Let me use the right economic word. They are short run. They are short run. So if we assume them from the economics aspect, we assume them to be fixed. We assume they are fixed, so they don't vary with time. That's why we talk about somebody's monthly earning as salary, because it is fixed. But contracts, they can be a contract. You can sign a contract for a day. You can sign a contract for a week. You can sign a contract for a month. So we allow these wages to do what we call to vary. They vary according to output. So from the public chart, I'm going to differentiate them. So wages, are contract earning. They are contract earnings that can vary according to output. They can vary according to output. Then we have what we call salary. We say they are short-term. They are short-term. They are short-term earnings, and they are assumed to be fixed. They don't vary. That's why most of the people who are under salary, some of the time they don't show up for their jobs, because in one way or another, they are entitled to their earning at the end of the period as agreed between the employee and themselves. So that is the difference. So today we are talking about wage differentials, wage determination. So we are not talking about salary determination. We are talking about specifically wage. Why do sometimes wage reduce, increase? Because salaries do not change. They are fixed. So that is why, even from the topic, we are talking about theories of wages. Mahmoud, what are you saying? Mercy, are you using your phone? If you are using your phone, you can swipe to get the public chat. But if you are using your machine, I think you could be seeing the public chat. So that is the difference. So let's now specifically move to the theories. We have number one theory. We have what we call, I don't know how to spell this word. We call it subsistence. Subsistence. I know my handwriting is poor, but so we are talking about subsistence theory of wage determination. That is number one. That is number one theory. So this theory argues in this manner. The theory argues in this manner. I'm not going to be using the public chat. I'm going to use the presentation area and the speech. So this theory argues that the price for labor is determined by the cost of production. So it argues in this basis that the price somebody is going to get for giving out labor services, it is going to be determined by the cost of production. So assuming that we are employing two things, we are employing labor, L, and capital K as factors of production. So labor is going to get a share of from the cost of production. So what somebody is going to earn is going to be determined by the cost of production. So if the cost of production is so huge, we assume that these people are going to earn so much. And if the cost of production is too small, these people are going to assume to be earning so little. So it argues that people normally go to the job market to work so that they can sustain themselves in a day-to-day basis. They don't go to get so much from the labor market. They just go to the labor market to attain what we call the subsistence minimum. So there is something, I'm going to use the public chat for this case. So it argues that people give labor services to receive the subsistence minimum for their day-to-day upkeep. So people don't go to the labor market to get so much. They just get what can sustain them. So people go to the market and get what can sustain them. So it argues that if wages increase more than the subsistence minimum, if wages increase more than the subsistence minimum, the population will increase. The population will increase, hence increasing labor supply, hence increasing labor supply. Labor supply that in the long run will pull back wages to the subsistence minimum. So we are arguing in this space that in case that people, if I am maybe spending 20 bob per day, if my salary goes to 50 bob per day, the population will increase in return. That is going to increase, bring more people to the market. And when more people comes to the market, they will be like, we are scrambling for this minimum because the cost of production, we assume it's going to be the same. So we are assuming that many people will come to the market. So that share of the cost of production that will be dedicated to us, it will pull everybody back to the 20 bob where we were initially. So that is the argument from this theory. And this theory has been criticized in many ways because this theory is just, it was like somebody throws out words, like somebody is supposed to earn from a share of the cost of production. That is the first argument. You are supposed to earn from a share of cost of production, one. Number two, you are supposed to earn the subsistence minimum. What can sustain you to have a normal life? That's what you are supposed to be earning. So in case your wages or your salary goes above, people will reproduce more. That is the argument from the theory. People will reproduce more, increasing the labor supply, who will come to the market. And when they come to the market, we are scrambling for this share from the cost of production. That's why we started from the share of cost of production. So because of that, the cost is going, the money that we are going to receive is going to be shared among now many people so that we can earn the subsistence minimum. Are we together, guys? Are we together? I want to know people are in class. I'm using a poll, yes, no. I don't choose to use the public chat. I'm using So I can see people are in class and there's somebody who is not there. Okay, so this theory has faced a lot of criticism. So it has faced a lot of critics. So the theory has faced critics. I am trying to use this thing. So the theory has faced a lot of critics. Number one, this theory is based on the Malthusian. It is based on the Malthusian theory of population. It is based on the Malthusian theory of population. So I hope when you have your time, you can go about the Malthusian theory of population. This theory already was incorrect, and it was an incorrect theory that was already, it has faced a lot of criticism as the theory itself, because it argues that population. Imagine that you are today, your salary has increased today. Maybe you are the person now who is earning the 50 bob and your subsistence minimum is 20 bob. Imagine going to reproduce a young one who will come to compete for that labor services, assuming your age. How many years will this person come to the job market? It will be a number of years. So the Malthusian theory was incorrect. It is a very ambiguous theory. The population doesn't increase on an overnight. The population increases with, say, exponentially. It takes some time for the population to increase. The population doesn't increase overnight. So the case where we are talking about that if your wage becomes more than the subsistence minimum, population increase. How does that population increase overnight? If I am earning 50 bob today, will the population increase tomorrow to take up the surplus? No. So this theory was incorrect. It is based in the Malthusian theory of population, and the theory itself was incorrect. That is the first thing. Number two, this is a one-side theory. This is a one-side theory. It is talking about supply. It is talking about supply of labor. We are not looking at what happens. It is talking about supply of labor. We don't take into account what happens to the demand for labor. So it is a one-side theory. It doesn't account for the demand side of labor. That's another shortcoming from this theory. Are we together? Guys, are we together? Na mtanipigia simu siku ya mtihani mniuliza maswali. Si saizi. Are we together, guys? We continue. Number 3. We are talking about number 3. This theory, the theory itself, the theory is wrong. This theory is wrong. Why? We are coming, let us be realistic. Let us try to be, I want you to use the public chat to answer this question. Assuming somebody is a CEO of a company, and assume somebody is a gardener in a certain village, maybe in my home county, Trans Nzoia. Let us assume that. So we have somebody, a gardener in Trans Nzoia, and somebody is a CEO. Let us talk about the task is line of market. Among these two people, who is going to have more kids, the CEO or the gardener? I want you to use the public chat to tell me. The CEO will be having more kids or the gardener will be having more kids? I'm waiting for your response, guys. Among the CEO and the gardener, who is likely to have more kids in the current society where we are living in Kenya? Okay, this is what normally happens. The theory argues that this theory we have said, it argues in this way. When your salary increases beyond the subsistence minimum, you are going to increase the reproduction rate, hence increasing population. But in real sense, we know that those people who are earning so little beyond the subsistence minimum are the ones that are increasing the population in our country. People who are earning too much do not increase population. So that's why I'm using the word empirically wrong. Because in real sense, people who are earning so little, when people, their income increases, they think of other investment plans. They don't think about increasing population. So the theory is empirically wrong. I saw somebody saying the CEO, Faith Indewa. That is, I don't know which argument you picked up, but in real sense, the gardener will be having more kids compared to the CEO, because the CEO will be thinking of other investment plans, will not be thinking about the production of how increasing the population, because he understands he's more civilized compared to somebody in the village earning so little. So we understand that when somebody earns so much, he or she is going to invest, not thinking about kids. But when a gardener, because he has nothing to do, he will be thinking about kids. So it is empirically wrong. When people earn too much, they think about investment. They don't think about increasing population. So number four, Yani, I'm sorry. Number four, this theory, the theory itself, we are talking about theories of wage differential, but this theory does not explain. We are talking about theories of wage differentials, but this theory itself does not explain the cause of the wage differentials. It does not. Let me say it doesn't. It doesn't. There's an N somewhere there. Explain the cause of wage differentials. So this theory doesn't explain the cause of wage differences, because we are assuming that from this, we are saying that labor earns from a share, it earns a share of the cost of production. So we are assuming that everybody will be earning almost the same amount from what we produce. If we are producing avocados and our cost of production, let us say it is 900,000, assuming that capital takes 500,000, then we have 400,000. We, all the people who are now engaged in the labor side, we are going to divide equally among these 400,000. So there is nobody who will be taking too much home or too little home. We are taking equal amount home. So the theory does not explain the cause of wage differential. So it is a theory of wage determination, but it doesn't explain the cause of wage differentials. So that is a shortcoming from this theory. Then finally, number five, I'm going to use the public chart because it is a wrong explanation. Since people or labor earns the same amount, since labor earns the same amount, the theory disregards productivity. So maybe in the line of labor production, we have different people. We have the managers, we have the supervisors, then we have the people on the ground. These people are earning the same. So my distinct achievement will not be catered for. I may be the one supervising, or I might be the source of the brain behind everything. But since we are earning the same, there is no, that doesn't give me morale to keep on adding more skills. So it disregards productivity. So that is the end of the first theory. Then we talk about the second theory we are supposed to cover today. Wage fund theory is wage fund theory. Wage fund theory. I'm talking about wage fund theory. These are you. Wage fund theory. Wage fund theory. So this one, it states, okay, in simple terms, it says that wage, I'm going to use a mathematical illustration, equals to wage fund. I'm using shorthand. I'm going to explain that. Divide by total labor supply. Divide by total labor supply. So the wage rate is going to be equal to the wage fund divided by the total number of labor supply. So this theory assumes that in the production process, there are funds set aside to pay wages. So people are going to earn these. If the labor supply increases, people are going to earn so little. And if the labor supply goes down, people are going to earn so much. So we are talking about the wage fund is assumed to be fixed. That is the first thing about the theory. Wage fund assumed to be fixed. That is the first case. Labor will earn a ratio of wage fund to total labor supply. So assuming we were doing a building and our contractor had set aside, let us assume our contractor had set aside 1 million for labor as wage fund. This was our wage fund. So we assume that we have come to the place 120 people. So when we go home, our wage for one individual is going to be given by the 1 million. It's going to be the 1 million It's going to be the 1 million divided by the total number of the labor that was supplied, that is 120. Hope you can do that mathematically and you can realize what you are supposed to take home. So this theory has also faced some critiques. So it has critiques. It has critiques. The theory has critiques. This theory has critiques. Number one critique, it is unscientific. It is unscientific. It is unscientific. You cannot set aside the total amount you are going to pay people before seeing what they can do. So in most cases, firms get income first, then from their income, it is what they see what amount they are going. So we are assuming that you cannot prejudge what you are going to make tomorrow, so that you cannot anticipate what you are going to earn tomorrow, so that you can make plans about how you are going to pay people. You have to earn first, then plan how to pay people. So it is unscientific. The firms earn income, then they choose the amount of income they are going to give as wages. So they don't anticipate for the incomes. So it is number one, it is unscientific. Number two, this theory also does not explain the cause of wage. It does not explain the causes of wage differentials. It doesn't explain the causes of wage differentials. Why somebody is earning too much compared to the other? Because they are talking about wage funds are set aside, then it is divided by the total number of people. So it doesn't explain the causes of wage differences. Number three, this theory too, it disregards productivity. It disregards productivity. It disregards productivity. It doesn't account that somebody is more skilled to the other. Disregards productivity. It disregards productivity. The theory disregards productivity. Number 4, we understand in the labor market we have what we call trade union. So it does not account for the effects. It does not account for the effects of trade unions. For the effects of trade unions. Because trade unions, they take account into what somebody is going to earn. Number 5, it doesn't account for the effect of trade union because trade unions, they negotiate for increases in price for their members. So they don't take into account the effects. I'm sorry, the effect, there is a word effect here. It doesn't account for the effects of trade union. Then number 5, it assumes homogeneity. Homogeneity means similar. It assumes homogeneity of labor. It assumes that everybody, all the people that are going to be there, they have the same skills. That's why they are earning the same amount. So it assumes homogeneity of labor. It assumes homogeneity of labor, and that is one of the weaknesses. That is one of the weaknesses. Anybody up to that point? Somebody mwenye akona swali? Who has got a question? Mtu alisoma kitu anataka kuclarify? Somebody with a question before we move to the next theory? Assuming that there is no question. So the next theory, number 3, we are talking about the Karl Marx. I like this guy so much. He's so instrumental in economics. He's called Karl Marx. I know some people are thinking about Karl Pearson's, but here we are talking about Karl Marx. It's called the Karl Marx theory of wage determination. Theory of wage determination. Karl Marx theory of wage determination. So the Karl Marx wage, this person existed between 1918 and 1983. This guy was a great economist, philosopher, journalist from the Great Britain. This person was a great economist. I really like this guy. He anticipated many things that I am expecting to happen in Kenya in the near future. I can give you a brief history about this guy from the development economics. This guy argued that it will come to a point whereby, okay, there is this thing a philosopher once said. I'm trying to remember the name. I don't know whether it was Descartes, but it was one of the philosophers said this, that the government, people in power, will as much as possible make the subject poor enough. And this guy argued about the demons, the random demons. And he said that the people in power, your LMP, your MC, your governor, your senate, your president, will make sure that you are that poor. Then he or she will come to you, give you a little thing. Then you will be calling them demigods and you will be worshiping them forever and ever. That's what normally happens in the Kenyan politics, and it plays a very good role in political economies. that the subjects will always be subjected to poverty to an extent whereby you are going to feel that without this person, I cannot make it. That's what normally happens in politics. But Karl Marx argued this way. Yes, the subjects will be resilient at a point. As much as they will be trying to make the people poor and poor and poor to be the demigods, the subjects will come to a point when they will have gathered enough information. They will form a revolutionary. That's why I said this guy was a revolutionary. They will form a movement that they are going to use to overthrow the people in power. In Kenya, that thing is happening in the near future because most of the youths are outside there idle without the jobs, and the youths have realized that they have got power, they have masses. That's why you realize nowadays, wherever somebody, you remember the other day when Mutai Kawe was saying, it is a time for the youths to come and help the economy. No, no, no. The youths already formed a certain movement online and they were like, what? Call Akina Mudi Awoli, call those Akina Atuoli. They are the ones who are in the job market. Call them so that they can come and aid. Don't call us the youths at this time. So we cannot only be recalled wherever there's a crisis. So I'm seeing in a near future a country whereby the Karl Marx theory of development is going to apply, and people are going to unite and stand up to take those people who think they are the demigods home. So Karl Marx is a very good person. I wish that when you have your free time, you can read about the Karl Marx quotations, Karl Marx history. This guy was so great. So this guy argued in this way. I'm waiting to see what people are typing because I'm seeing some people typing. I'm waiting for your types. Then I continue because I'm doing what I enjoy doing best. I like what speaks about wages because kila mtu hapa anataka msahara at the end of the time. Faith, speak something. I want to hear from you. Who are you worshiping? These people are not finishing typing. I'm giving them time to type. They are not typing. They are not finishing whatever they are typing. They are those typing, they delete, they type, they delete. I can see Amina typing and Mohamud. I'm waiting to see what you are typing. Joke has joined the movement. Have I touched you guys? You want to stone me? I'm not a Steven, come on. There's somebody who has joined our class at this time. Who is that person? Let me see the person. Lydia, why are you becoming so hard on me? I just, I know we come from different regions and we worship different people. Let us go educate our fellow youths outside there. We can make a difference in this country. This country needs more youths than it needs those old wazes who are coming in to take our pension. Our money has pension. So let us assume that. Let us be serious. Let us be serious and let us talk about what Karl Marx said. Karl Marx said, he argued in this way. Yes, we normally employ capital. We employ capital K and labor as factors of production. We employ capital and labor as factors of production. I want today to make you understand what capital stands for. Some people assume that capital is money. And I know most of my class members assume capital is money. Capital is not money. Let me today tell you capital is not. It is not money. Capital is not money. Capital is farm inventories. We are talking about machineries, buildings, and such stuff. So when we talk about capital, it's not essentially money. It is not essentially money. I have had people argue. You get people arguing in a platform with economists that capital, while capital they are talking about is money. I know some of you have not started business because you don't have capital. Si ni ukweli? Si mnasemanga hivyo that I don't have capital to start a business. That's what you normally argue with. While you are talking about capital, you mean money. I want you to differentiate between an economist and somebody from another field. Capital is not money. Are we together, guys? Capital is not money. If I get one of my members arguing that I don't have capital to start a business, I'm going to chase you out of my class forever. Which formula are you talking about, Kyoko? Which formula are you talking about? Are you talking about? I'm trying to understand which formulas he's talking about. Are you talking about what I did here, wage funds over total? Are you talking about this? Oh, no, this is not a formula. It was a simple illustration. I said that, okay, from the subsistence theory, we said that wages are a share of the cost of production from the subsistence theory. And we said that somebody is entitled to the subsistence minimum. But here we talked about the wage fund theory. It argued that people set aside wage funds, and each individual is going to earn from this wage fund. So the wage an individual takes home is equal to the wage fund divided by the total labor supply. So it was this and simple illustration. I was trying to show that wages are going to be same at this point, and also to master things to be easy to understand. You can also take this. Don't cram. We don't cram in economics. You are allowed to cram in entrepreneurship, but in economics, no. Okay. Don't cram. That is something you can remember. That's something you can joke around with. So this guy argued that when we talk about capital, most of us normally assume that capital, they normally assume capital to be money, but capital is inventory. This inventory can be building, farm machineries, and such stuff. So he argued that labor is the most important aspect in the production process because farms, machineries cannot run themselves. They need this labor. So Karl Marx argued that labor should enjoy the full fruits of production. I'm using the public chat. Karl Marx argued that labor should enjoy full fruits of production. He argued that capital cannot operate on its own. It needs labor to operate. So whatever the things that if we produce, for example, we have produced avocados and we were entitled to 1 million, let us not say we are entitled to 1 million, then it happens that we have managed to sell them out for something like 30 million. That 30 million should not say that the farm made a profit, the farm, I don't know, had an interest, the farm had what? That is stealing from labor. So he argued that the full fruits of production should be given to labor. So things such as profits and interests, things such as profits, interests, they are stealings from labor. He argued that labor is the most important thing in the production process. So anytime you hear a farm made profit, that farm is stealing from what people should have earned, the laborers in that farm could have earned. So there's no way a farm should be making profits if we go the Karl Marx way, because everything that is earned is supposed to be given back to the laborers. So he was a great philosopher. He was a great journalist. He was a great scholar. He was a great revolutionary. This guy was extraordinary. I think he was one of the best. One of the best. So I'm almost talking about the last theory. Let me get what people are arguing. Mohammed, they always argue this way. If you have the entrepreneurial skills, that is human capital. If you have got the entrepreneurial skills, you don't need capital to sell your idea. If you got the entrepreneurial skills, as long as you can write down on paper what you have and explain what you need, and you give it is outcome, trust me, capital is not a cost in between. It doesn't play any role. Yeah, that's what I was saying, Kyoko. I was talking about, according to Karl Marx, his argument was that farms should not be making profits. That is a stealing from the laborers. So they are stealing from those people who are working for them. In terms, they are saying we made a profit margin of this. That is a stealing from the laborers. At that time, we were slaves. I think we were slaves and we were the one working for them, and they were using us to make studies. Mina, in argument, in economists, let me today tell you, we have the different schools of economics. There are those schools that argue that firms should maximize their profits, and there are those schools that argue that firms should maximize their welfare. So I want to tell you the difference between those two schools. The school about maximizing welfare, it gives its entire earning back to the society. It maximizes the welfare. It tries to improve the living standards of different people. That maximizes welfare. And there's another school of thoughts that argue that farms should maximize their profits. that most of economists have purchased that idea that farms should be entirely for maximizing profits. So there are those two schools of thought. So it follows. But Karl Marx was, okay, this guy was a revolutionary, this guy was a scholar, and this guy was a journalist, and this guy was anticipating for human rights. Hope you heard from the story where I was telling you that at a point in time, these subjects will come up together, they gain momentum, then they overthrow the people who are subjecting them to the poor poverty. So Karl Marx was fighting for the people. He was fighting for the welfare. So his argument was based in the school of welfare thoughts. Any other question before I move to the next theory? I'm thinking about moving to the next theory, although it is not as good as the ones we have been sharing before. And there are some people who are just attendants, who have increased our attendance. Please, can everybody speak? I can see an argument about some farms, they choose to be welfare maximizing at the same time they are profit maximizing. But for Karl Marx, this guy wanted entirely welfare maximizing. Yeah, I know some farms, in the current society, we are working with something called cooperative social response, where farms are supposed, they sign an agreement. Trust me, my brothers and sisters, if there was no cooperative social response agreement, some farms could not even be thinking. I think even the wings to fly with equity, the Safaricom, I don't know their thing they are using in Mtan, I don't know what, they could not be there if they could not have signed the cooperative social response. Because when I look at Safaricom, it is entirely working to maximize its profit. Because there is no way a farm can be announcing billions of profits while somebody in that farm is earning 20,000. No. So that is a stealing from that person. That person should be considered. That person working for them should be considered first. This theory never faced any critique. Nobody criticized this guy. Nobody criticized this guy because it was for the social well-being. Nobody criticizes things about social well-being. You cannot criticize something that's going to make you Kyogo, that's why you are here on board. As we are fighting COVID-19, come up with a theory that's going to support us. I assume we African, we are using development curriculum from other people. That's why we are still having backward. We need our page. Okay, I remember one, I can't recall this guy, he was from UK. He said, I have made a journey to all parts of the world. I have seen different cultures, but there is one thing I have seen. There is a culture in Africa. And that culture in Africa, it is the best I've ever seen. But we are going to make them understand that their culture is a traditional culture. It is outdated. We are going to make them understand that civilizing them will improve their life standards. And we are going to make them slaves. True. That is what happened. We Africans before, we believed in ourselves. we had a culture. Every community in Kenya has a culture behind it. Yes, we lived like the old cocoons. We lived in the jungles. We never had houses, but we had a culture. That culture was so superior compared to the education we are going through. Yes. Somebody was arguing that the other day we had the Spanish flu in 1918. It attacked Africans, it attacked the entire world, but it never killed as many people. It only killed 200,000 people. But it was able to be contained during those times when we did not have hospitals. But today, somebody in Madagascar came up with a concoction saying that this can cure COVID-19. But he was told that is a mere what? An African thing, and that thing cannot be taken to the laboratory for test. So Africa, we had a culture that has been eroded. We think that we are becoming civilized each day and every day. But in a real sense, we are not becoming civilized. We are becoming stupid each day and every day. Somebody asked me the other day, right now we are talking about Kenya to be a developed country by 2030. That was a vision that was signed and enacted in 2007. 2007 and 2030, it was 23 years in between. For the first half of the period, what have we done that we are making a milestone towards development? Nothing. We have been running around saying corruption, corruption, and many people are becoming rich from the taxpayer money. That's number one. Number two, we Africans, we are excited merely for small things. Like yesterday, I was getting about, Murkomen talking about the politics. We are merely being excited with small things. We don't think beyond what is going to happen. When somebody came up with, okay, Kenya Vision 2030, this, we were merely excited that Kenya is going to be a developed country by 2030. But we did not take into root to consider how are we going to achieve this. The country we are in, we normally buy cheap politics. We don't engage ourselves in thorough analysis of the situations under cause. Like this, we are talking about Kenya being we are talking about Kenya in 1972, Kenya was at the same level as a country such as Singapore, South Korea. But now, this South Korea economy is almost 40 times ahead of the Kenyan economy. Why? Because for them, they applied a technological way of educating. Like, if I could be seated here, you are the HR managers, but what am I doing here? I'm giving you the theory part of HR. While some schools of thought are taking their students to the field. This is how NHL works. He comes in the morning, he sorts this and this. But in the case of Kenya, we are just like, okay, we give the theory part. When you go to the outside job, utajisort. That's now the difference. We cannot be taking professional education as serious while we are leaving the technical education to the dogs. So that's the difference. And then somebody argued that if Africa crosses its borders, we don't have any European intervention. And assuming a country like DRC Congo, the country that has ravaged under war since most of us were born, we have been hearing that there's war in Congo all the time. If Congo decides to get what it is under their grounds, the under minerals in Congo can sustain Africa for 40 years. Somebody estimated that and said, what is under the grounds of Congo, it can sustain Africa. If Africa crosses its borders and entirely focuses that let us utilize what is in Congo first, for the next 40 years, every African will have survived and be helped. But what will happen, in Congo, we don't have even schools. People don't go to schools in Congo. People are not at peace in Congo. They are chasing each other. They are killing Africans, are killing Africans in Congo. Why? Somebody just came from Russia and said, you know what? There's no way you can be allowing somebody else to be doing this. Because they understand that if Congo comes down to their senses, they decide to focus on what they have, Congo is going to develop. And those countries such as Russia, they don't have even oil wells, but they are the richest oil producers in the world. They are taking it from Africa, then they are selling it back to Africa. Now the worst case happened for us Kenyans. We discovered that we have oil in Turkana, then that our cheap politics, they decided to close down the Changamwe oil refinery. We produce our oil, we export it, then it is sold back to us. Then we are happy. Let us continue. Let us not cry for being Africans. Let's talk about another theory, number 4. Number 4, it is called the marginal productivity theory. Marginal productivity theory. Marginal productivity theory. Marginal productivity theory. Don't know whether those are the spelling of productivity because I'm trying to chase something. There's a VITY. There's an I there. There's a T. There's a marginal productivity theory. So this theory says, it just states, I'm using the public chart, that the factor of production should earn it is marginal product. Should earn it is marginal product. The factor of production should earn the factor of production, I'm sorry. The factor of production should earn. The factor of production should earn it is marginal product. So we say in most cases we are talking about labor here. So when we talk about labor, we say it earns wages. I'm not talking about anything today's salaries, I'm talking about wages. So these wages should be equal to the marginal product of labor. So labor should earn wages which are equal to its marginal product of labor. That is how this theory argues that. So farms should make efficient allocation so that labor should earn wages that equal to the marginal product of labor. Are we together, guys? Tuko pamoja? So marginal product theory, it stated that the factor of production, and I told you the factors of production we have, we know the factors, we know wages, entrepreneurship, all those. So labor should earn its marginal product. So the marginal product of labor is given as MPL, marginal product of labor. So in most cases, when you are arguing about economics, this is the theory that normally stands. It is the one that normally stands, that even it is in some farms, it's the one that is being applied. In some farms, it is the one that is being applied. For those farms that pay people from what they earn. Like those firms that pay dividends, such things, commission, they use the marginal product theory. They use the marginal product theory. It is not a determined. Mohammed, it is not a determined. It means that the wage for labor equals to. It's not a determined. I'm using the equal sign to mean it equals to the marginal product of labor. That's why in most cases, that's what applies for those firms that pay using commission and such stuff. So this theory also faces critics. Okay. I did not want to make this thing look so ambiguous because I know some students hated me the other time when I was teaching them mathematical concepts. So I wanted to let it right here, but let me continue a bit. So we have the factors of production given as F, or the production function is given as K, L. This is just for elaboration. I'm not teaching you mathematical concepts. I was told that students hate maths. So when you are given this as the production function QF, here we assume that output Q equals to is given by capital and labor. So when we are talking about the marginal product of labor, MPL, in this case, we mean it is the change in Q, change in output that is brought about by the change in labor. This is the change in output brought about by the change in labor. In some books, you can find it is given by change in F of K L divided by change in labor. So this is what we mean. When we do this, we mean that this is change in output that will be only be brought about by the change in labor. So when labor changes, it will cause a change in output. So we don't focus about what capital does to output. We only focus on what labor does to output. So in most cases, labor is paid. We know that labor has a reward that is wages. So firms will pay wages. They will pay wages that equal to the marginal product of labor. So firms will only pay wages that are equal to the change in output that is brought up by the change in labor. So that is what I can elaborate. I don't want to go further because I know you hate mathematical concepts, kwanza differentiation. Those people from town campus. I'm sorry to say those people from town campus. No, it is not equal to average revenue productivity. It is not. It is not, Muhammad. It is not. When you talk about average, we are talking about a different thing. Remember here we are using the Y. We are using something here. Look at this, what we are using here. Average is when you divide by. Maybe I could have divided by L. That is when I get the average. Kyoko, are we together? I don't want to elaborate this thing further because I know somebody here is cursing me. To a town canvas. I don't want to go further past this, please. Just let us understand that wage is going to be equal to the marginal product of labor. That is what the theory argues. So the critiques for this theory, the theory enjoys some critiques too. The theory enjoys some critics. So number one, it also assumes, it assumes homogeneity. It assumes homogeneity, that people have the same skills. So we are assuming homogeneity. It is assuming homogeneity, that people have the same skills. So they are going to earn the same, because it doesn't show as the cause of wage differential between an organization or between one firm. So it is assuming homogeneity, although we have different people with different attributes. So number two, since wages equal to MPL equal to the marginal product of labor, it means that I'm using the public chart. It means that to have constant wages, the number of labor constantly varied. Why am I saying so? The farm cannot realize the same output for the next 6 months. Today, the farm can realize a profit, or it can realize output of maybe 3,000 megatons. The other month, it realized 248,000 megatons. So there is that variation. So to have the same, to maintain the same wage for maybe 3 weeks, or to maintain the same wage for maybe an year, the farm will constantly try to change the number of labor so that MPL is constant over the year. Because output cannot be constant. The farm cannot produce the same output throughout the year. Number three, it assumes a perfect market. It assumes a perfect competitive market. It assumes a perfect competitive market, which is ideal. The cases where we have wages equals to MPL, these are cases of perfect competitive market. These are cases of perfect competitive market. That's where wages equals to marginal product of labor. So it is assuming a perfect market, which is ideal. When I say the perfect market is ideal, in economics, when something is ideal, it means it does not exist. We don't have cases of perfect market. It doesn't exist. This market doesn't exist. Are we together? The market we are talking about here, this theory assumes this market doesn't exist. The ideal market don't exist. So there are other criticisms about the theory. You can go through them. There is talk about perfect mobility of labor. There is about reduction of wages. You can go through the notes. You will see that. Up to that point, who has a question about theories of wage determination? Anybody with a question? If there's no question, I want to talk about topic number 5. I shared the notes with you. It's a small topic, very small topic. Should we continue? I want to know those who don't want to continue. I'm using yes, no poll. I'm at watch. People don't want to continue. I can see. People don't want to continue. People want to go home. Because most of you don't want to continue, I've checked and I realized that most people don't want to continue. I want to leave behind an assignment. I want to leave behind an assignment because it's a very small topic. But it's one of the smallest topics you can ever face. So you would allow me to leave an assignment. Hope you allow me to leave an assignment. I'm also sending another poll. Do you allow me to leave an assignment? Yes, no? Thank you. So it's going to be a very small assignment. And I would rather explain that before. Thank you, Mohammed. So today I'm going to leave a simple illustration and a simple example. Then I leave an assignment behind. This is what normally happens. Teachers, in Kenya we have teachers. They are under government agency, the Teachers Service Commission, TSC. We expect that because they are mandated or they are obligated to teach students, they should earn the same amount of salary. But there is that variation of salaries among teachers. And I want you to come up with the reasons that bring about these variations. That's the first question I want to leave behind. And then the second question I want to leave behind is that we have different business courses that you could have taken up, but you chose to take human resource. So I want us to compare, why did you choose human resource than management administration? So these are the two questions that I'm going to use to cover up the next topic. So I'm adding another activity under the course that I'm going to share the questions I have on board. So under the topic, and don't log out because I'm going to call the class attendance register. I'm going to call upon the class attendance register. Don't log out. I will not assume that you are in class and yet I did not hear you say yes or no. So I'm posting the questions first. Teachers are obligated to teach students, to teach learners. However, explain why. So from my side, I have already okay, I can see. It's not necessarily to be done today. You can do it even tomorrow because I've posted the questions. For those who are able to see the questions, I've already posted the questions. They are just feasible. There are two, the last activity that I've posted, they are feasible questions. So let me take the time to mark the class attendance register. And I'm going to call your names. And with that in mind, I'm going to unmute your mics. So also from your side, enable yourself to come on board with the audio type. So I'm going to unmute your mics.